Welcome to Improv for the Podcast. On this week's episode, I'm joined by Brian Zaik, who will tell us all about his improvisational journey. We'll play a game, and most importantly, learn how he improv'd his life. Let's hit it! Welcome to Improv for the Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Lee Evans, and today I'm joined by the incredibly talented master of spice, sketch comedian, improviser, manager of products, the man with the mic, Brian Zaik.
Wow.
Wow.
What an introduction.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you, Brian, for being here.
It's so awesome to be here.
Yeah, it's a school night, and you were able to come out.
Well, you know, I do what matters. I stay up late if I need to, so
Absolutely.
No worries.
I like to hear it, because we're going to be here. Well, we're going to see the sunrise. We're going to see it set and rise.
This one's going deep, yeah. We're
Yeah.
going to go deep into a bunch of stuff.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for understanding the requirements of this podcast. It's grueling. That's why we've been off the air for a while, because people couldn't handle it.
Well, I am assuming that we're going to have a great show. So
Yes, we are.
The wait's been worth it.
Well, it's going to be a great show because, Brian, you're here.
Wow.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I wanted to say that this is the first podcast I have ever been on.
Wow.
So I have no idea how it's going to go, but it is a month of firsts.
It's a month of first. Oh.
Yeah, we did the first sketch show that
First
I've
sketch
ever
show?
been in. The first time I've performed improv in front of people as well.
Oh, my gosh.
And then the first podcast. So
Okay, you're killing it.
You have become a critical part of my life. So I just wanted to let you know.
Wow. Well, I say thank you for being willing to take those risks, because it takes showing up to do all those things.
Yeah, it does.
We just concluded a sketch comedy show about 2 weeks ago, which Brian was in. He was fantastic. Wrote a hilarious sketch about, I'd call it a commentary on modern Hollywood.
About some people I've met.
About some people
without
he's
any
met
names, yeah.
who will not be named, or
Well, time will tell.
Time will tell. Time will tell.
That's why we got the late night show, right?
yeah. But it's just a hilarious sketch, on modern Hollywood. Really, the follies of producers and the movies that do get made for some reason.
Oh yeah.
Was a ton of fun. But before we get into everything too much, Brian, how do you know about this old place, IFTP? How'd you end up here?
Mm-hmm. Well, so one other thing I wanted to announce is this is my 1 year anniversary with
Oh my!
IFTP.
I didn't even get flowers. I forgot that.
Well, you know, I was waiting. I'm not going to hold it against you.
No, it's on my other calendar.
Well, you know, if the time is right.
Honey, I'm sorry.
All right. All right. Let's simmer down there. So, first year at IFTP.
Congratulations.
So I started
That's awesome.
last September.
Wow.
And that was right as I was getting into improv.
Okay.
And a couple years ago, actually before the pandemic, I lived in San Francisco in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And I did an improv class up there, just an introduction. And it was fun, but I still felt like there were certain things where I was just like, okay, well, this was a good time, but you know, I'll see when I want to go back into it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, something called COVID happened, and I was still
Yes.
interested in it, but everything went online.
Yeah.
And I felt like the whole like online aspect of improv was doing a disservice to it.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I just let it simmer for a little while. I moved to Los Angeles 2 years ago, and I was on a sabbatical, actually. So I moved from the Bay Area down to L.A., and I had gone to different improv shows around the LA area, and IFTP was one of the places I checked out just to explore.
Oh.
So I went to a show. I remember that Liam was in it, and of course
yeah.
Matt, and a whole bunch of other really talented, awesome people. And I loved the vibe with IFTP. As soon as I walked into the theater, I was just like, this place is awesome. And I wasn't really finding as much of that in the Bay Area. So I made a mental check note, and I was just like, okay, well, this is one of the places that I could do improv at in the future.
Yeah.
So I live in Long Beach, and I did an intro class right before IFTP last year in Long Beach. And it was a great school, but I was really interested in checking out this IFTP place. And so I reached out to Matt, and I was talking with him and decided to start classes in September of last year. And it has been an amazing year. There have been many challenges.
Yeah.
This is the first time that I've actually done a concerted improv period of time.
Yeah, I mean, week over week.
Yeah, and I was just like, I'm going to keep doing this. Like, even with the trials and tribulations, getting used to it. I don't have any theater background or anything before any of this. And I just knew that this was something that I wanted to do. And I have a whole lot of reasons for it, which I'm sure you're interested in.
I am. So I'm going to pause you right there because that's a perfect little teaser. So before we get into the man, the mystery, the legend, Brian Zaik on the mic, we got to play a little three things. So three things here on the podcast. As I mentioned to you earlier, three things, but it's personal. So I've done a little bit of digging. I've seen your website. I've seen your Instagram.
Yeah,
I've seen the Google form that I asked you to fill out. So I've learned as much as one can looking over those websites. So with that said, we're going to play some three things. So I'll give you a category.
right,
I'll name
let's do
three
it.
things, then we'll move on to the next one. And then we're going to do three total categories. Everything's in threes here tonight.
Perfect. I love the rule of threes.
Yep.
And I will make sure to answer as fast as I can.
Absolutely. All right, here we go. These are three things. First category, types of spicy pepper.
Cascabella. We've got
One.
Scotch bonnet. And
Two.
we've got habanero.
Three, very nice, very nice. Next category, things you put in a bowl.
Apples.
One.
Bananas.
Two.
And old toenails.
Three, very nice. Last category, favorite Nintendo products or games.
I see where you're coming from. All right. So, The Legend of Zelda. All of them.
Oh, wow, okay.
Pikmin.
Two.
And Pokemon.
Three. These are three
There you go,
things.
three
All
things.
right. Ooh, okay. So we're going to dive into each of those a little bit.
Perfect.
All right, so your peppers. I got to give it up for the habanero. It's a classic. Just a great pepper, great salsa, great hot sauce.
And it can get very spicy.
Yes.
So it's not, I mean, we're not talking about ghost peppers or something that's in like the upper echelon,
Yeah.
but certainly habaneros are formidable.
Yeah.
And they are lovely. They've got this great flavor to them, and Scotch bonnet are actually related to
Right.
habanero.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a great world of pepper.
What was that first pepper you mentioned? Starts with a C.
Cascabella.
I'm
So
not familiar with that one.
actually, if you go to, I believe, In-N-Out Burger, so the yellow peppers that they serve are
Oh,
Cascabella.
yeah. I got those yesterday.
Yeah, I and when I go to In-N-Out Burger, and they're not that spicy, but they still give you a zing.
Yeah.
And I ask for like 5 different containers of those peppers, and I just munch them in front of people while I'm waiting for my burger.
Ah, that's a good plan.
And of course, everybody looks at me and they're like, I mean, they thought that they liked them, but then they look at me and they're like, all right,
That
this
guy
guy's
really likes
a little crazy here. But they're lovely too. Great appetizer.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, I always get them on my burger and say chopped chilies.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know what kind they were, so now I know.
Yeah. I hope I pronounced it correctly.
Yeah,
We'll find out.
Now, I'm going to say you did.
All right, let's
And
go
that's
with it.
based off not knowing that word until 2 minutes ago. But last question I'll ask you about the peppers. What is the spiciest pepper that you've ever had?
Ooh,
I know the Reaper's
so-
up there, right?
Have you ever heard of something called the extract?
No.
You can find it on Amazon.
Okay.
If you were to ever buy this thing, it's like $100. But it is a pepper extract. And you literally, if you put more than 1 drop on food, you're supposed to mix it in when you make something. This has something like 8-9 million Scoville.
Oh my
heat
gosh.
units. This is the craziest pepper you could ever find anywhere. And I have it in my cabinet. I have used it merely a few times.
Yeah.
It is wild. It's almost like a substance from an alien planet.
Wow.
And it is so far beyond anything that you could find in a store and anything you should find in a store because this thing is wild.
I'm going to have to look that up. I'm going to have to do some research.
Yeah, it's got like a Mayan, almost like a Mayan statue on the front of it.
It's got to have some great presentation, I imagine.
Yeah, and it is crazy. So any of those one chip challenge types of things, like, they dump black peppercorn on it and,
Yeah.
like dust.
Yeah.
But this is the real deal.
Yeah, it's an extract from...
Yeah, and you could probably die if you actually drink that.
I believe it. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Closest, I don't know. I've done like the Hot Ones challenge. Like, my friend bought the kit. We did it at home. Did the whole thing, no drinks, no nothing. And I was proud of that. But this probably does not compare to the extract, like the last dab and those, last few.
I mean, I've done all the kits too, and I love Hot Ones.
Yeah.
And Last Dab is a really beautiful pepper sauce.
Yeah.
And it's, especially with the color of it and everything, it seems different than what you'd expect.
Yeah.
But it delivers where it matters.
Yeah.
And I love all those sauces too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fun thing to do. I'd say, like, get that kit if you're in for a spicy afternoon. I had a couple friends. The three of us, we bought some like plain wings, sauced them up, and then went for it. It was a great time.
Yeah,
yeah. That's
my idea of a great Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I could get into that. All right, okay. I gotta ask you one more spicy question. You been to Howlin' Ray's?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We should go. Let's go. How late is it open?
Yeah, they close at 7 p.m. Unfortunately.
All right, well, another day. But
they have the worst hours. But
so as I mentioned, I've been in L.A. County for only a couple years so far. But I am working my way through all of the restaurants through Thai Town and all the different amazing places. But I have not been there yet.
Okay, I strongly recommend it. They have they got spicy chicken, but then they have one that's called Howlin' flavor, and that's you have to sign a waiver for it. It's a whole thing. And it's you just got to try it for the show.
So I will say that anytime a place gives me a waiver, I'm just like, oh, come on. Come on. It can't be that spicy.
Yeah.
And I will say that anytime some place has really hyped up the waiver, it has always disappointed me.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know with Howlin' Ray's.
Yeah.
This waiver might be worth it, but I'll definitely try it.
I'm here now. That's all I'll say. I'm here now.
You survived.
I'm here now. Yeah. It wasn't. Yeah. I don't know. It probably, if you've had the extract, I feel like that's king.
I should bring it with me.
I say, you got to show that off. Be like, oh, just for my lunch.
Yeah, this guy will be like, the guy behind the register will say, uh-oh, we got a hot shot on our hands.
Whoa,
here.
Bad boy. Bad boy. He better bring him another waiver.
Yeah.
All right. That second category, this is a weird one. Why do you think I asked you about bowls?
I don't know. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Well, so I meditate, and I use singing bowls sometimes.
I didn't know that.
So let's just go with that. Why not?
Yeah. I thought, what? Here was my logic, if you can call it that. I saw pictures. You had a decent amount of pictures of food, which I always appreciate because, that says a lot about this is the type of food I'm interested in, or, it shows how adventurous one is, right? And I just thought food, bowls. Some people like food in bowls. Some people like food in plates. But bowls are used for a lot of things. So I just thought I'd throw out there bowls. I didn't even say food. And I just wanted to see what you'd put in there. Because bowls can be pretty ambiguous.
Some of the best foods I have ever had have been in bowl form.
Yeah.
And in rare cases, I've eaten the bowl, too, because it's been edible.
Tostada.
I don't eat like porcelain or anything like that. But
that's good. That'd be bad. Yeah. I'm glad.
Very good.
If you did, you'd need to disclose that before you came on the episode.
Yeah, I'd probably have more problems than that, honestly.
Yeah, you would. Yeah. All right. Last category, Nintendo. Why do you think I asked you about Nintendo, Brian?
Well, there are many reasons why I could guess, but so I remember that Dave Lay was on the show.
Yes.
And, I remember there was a long, long conversation about video games.
Oh, yeah.
And Nintendo and Super Mario Brothers and things like that. And I grew up playing video games. I always gravitated to Nintendo. And so I have played Nintendo since the NES and even Game & Watch, different consoles, things like that along the way. And I have honestly played the shit out of every Zelda game, including the obscure ones.
Okay.
Not the CDI ones, that's a little too nerdy for me. But I do really love Nintendo. I love their attention to detail. And I mentioned Pikmin.
Yeah.
And that was just from Shigeru Miyamoto just being in his garden and just being like, what if I had a game that was based in my garden with these little creatures?
Yeah.
And I think they're an amazing company.
Yeah. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree and can relate to, like, if I look back on my life, like, growing up, playing video games, and every now and then as an adult, I'm like, yeah, Nintendo is just, I just kind of always end up back there. because they're always putting out something, and I'm like, I know it's gonna be fun. I can play it with my friends, like have people come over, whether it's Mario Party or Mario Kart or so many Wii Sports or anything like that. It's like nobody else is doing it. Still consistently at such a high level, high quality.
Yeah. I will say, so I go on and off nowadays playing video games, but it's a fantastic release from any stress.
Yeah.
And so I still actively play games.
Yeah.
And lately, Astrobot on the PlayStation 5.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
It's like a Nintendo game. I mean, they did an amazing job just creating like a Mario 3D platform.
Yeah.
So that one gives me hope that maybe more people are getting the Nintendo formula.
Yeah, there's other studios out there. And I know that one is pretty innovative with what you can do with the controller, right? Because that's one of the big selling points of the PS5. I think most people, most studios, I don't think utilize that, but there's a few. Because that's a first-party title, I think, right?
Yeah, and I will say if every game were like that, where your controller is just constantly vibrating with like raindrops and things, it would get to be a little much.
Yeah, you're like, all right.
But I'm happy for that one game that really takes advantage of the controller, and it is so much fun.
Yeah, people playing Call of Duty probably don't want that.
Some might.
I don't know.
They want the full experience.
It's got some features. All right, I'm gonna push you a little bit on Nintendo, and then we're gonna talk about some improv. But since we're doing in the spirit of three things, give me your three favorite Nintendo games
of all time.
Yeah, of all time. That's why I said I'm gonna push you.
Number 1, Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Number 2, I would say Super Mario World. Number 3. Tough. I'm going to go with the first thing that pops in my head that could be in the realm. I'm going to say Super Mario Brothers 3.
Ah, okay. Ocarina. Yeah. I mean, besides, I love the newer ones, like Breath of the Wild. I'm a huge fan, but this is a very different kind of game than Ocarina of Time, with the dungeons.
I feel like they just got it. They nailed it. It was the first 3D Zelda.
Yeah.
And they worked on it for a long time.
Yeah.
But everything about that, even though it isn't that long, was perfection.
Yeah.
And except for the water temple. But
it still gets a lot of flack all these years later.
Yeah, and it always will.
Yeah. But just I can't even imagine. Just something like that was, I think, groundbreaking. Really, I mean, just the elements of the time travel, aging up and aging down, and playing songs to control time and storms and all these different mechanics. Crazy. But
I have to go replay it, actually. Just us talking about it.
Yeah, think about it. I don't know if I've played either of those Mario titles. I'm not sure. I may have. There's some in my younger years that I can't remember the names. I just know it was Mario.
Yeah.
I was playing, and it was, I think I had one on a Game Boy. Game Boy Color.
Super Mario Land.
Okay.
Might have been that one.
Okay.
Legend of the, what was this? Like Rings, something like that? Rings or Stars.
Yeah. Ring Stars, it's usually one of those
it's in the realm
with that Mario guy.
Nintendo objects.
Yeah, Rings, Stars. You're always after one of those things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, very nice. All right, well, thank you for sharing your Nintendo knowledge a little bit. All right, so Brian, you teased it a little bit on improv. So I want to take it back, and I want you to think about the first time in your life that you maybe heard about, saw, accidentally typed. I just heard about improv in general. When was that for you, your first exposure?
Honestly, I think the seeds were planted very early. So I would always watch Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah.
Right? And I would even watch the British original episodes. And especially once it became available everywhere and you could access all the episodes, then I would just go back and rewatch all of those things. And I fell in love with that show. It was my guilty pleasure. And honestly, not too much guilt because it was just such a great show. And I loved the dynamics between like Ryan and Colin and Wayne and Greg Proops and obviously Drew Carey and Brad Sherwood and Jonathan Mangum. And it's just like everybody was so on fire with that show. And I loved sound effects, the original sound effects.
Oh, yeah.
Where they would just have like Ryan and Colin on stage and they would just, I kind of like stupid funny.
Yeah.
Where it's like slapstick type of stuff. And when I would watch that and the sound effects game in particular, and I know they only had like 4 that they did in the whole series.
Yeah.
With the 2 of them, they ended up inviting audience members on, which was fun in its own way.
Changed the format, yeah.
Yeah, but I just fell in love with that. Yeah. So I watched, 15 seasons of that.
Yeah.
And I always knew that I wanted to try it out at some point. Yeah. But I will say that I was terrified of the premise of just going in front of other people, even if it's a class, and just not having any kind of preparation or script or anything, and just inventing something on the fly, and then even more making it fun, making it funny. And I know that not all improv needs to be funny, and that's fine, but it's I was just like I was a little terrified of that premise for a little while. Yeah. But it always was in my head. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you started watching that and you're like, oh wow. I mean, just that seed. Whose Line, just having done the show for a while now, it's been so influential, I think, to so many folks that I've had on, myself included. So it's like, and the power of that show to just like get improv out there, its name out there as an art form, I think is really something. Its cultural impact, I don't know. There's nothing like it. Just to kind of introduce this entire new form of comedy to America, really the world. You know, I mean, yeah, because it started in the UK, right, before we had our own version over here. So growing up, were you into performing at all? Were you doing theater, music, dance, anything like that? Was it?
I am sorry to say that I had no theater background at all. No? And my sister was into all of the creative arts. And she even went to school for acting. And she and I, maybe intentionally, maybe not, we were very much opposites on so many things. So in the early days, I gravitated more towards the technical side and, like math and science and engineering and all that. And I think that really looking back on it, I have always had a saying in my head, which is rather than growing up, I want to grow down. And I want to just push myself every year to just get more open-minded, to try out new things, to challenge myself. And I hope I never lose that.
Yeah.
Because if I look at who I was growing up to who I am now, 9-day difference. I didn't even wear jeans when I was growing up.
What?
I would wear Dockers.
Dockers? As a kid?
Yeah, as a kid.
That's for guys with office jobs.
I know. And I think it's, I have some theories for where that came from. But that's the thing where it's just, I try to push myself and keep doing that. So going to performing arts and creative arts, it was a big part of why I moved to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So I was in the Bay Area. I was working in tech. I still work in tech for my day job, but fortunately I have a little bit more work-life balance now, so I can do things on the side. And I think it was really a renaissance in many respects because I knew I wanted to be around creative people.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that there aren't creative people in the Bay Area and San Francisco, et cetera, but it is a little different.
Yeah.
And the culture's different.
Yeah.
And I love exploring. I love meeting new groups of people with different backgrounds, things like that. And I knew that I needed to go to LA at some point. Not with the intention of becoming big in performing arts or something like that, but really just seeing it as opening up another dimension of myself. Yeah. And meeting and interacting with awesome people who were putting together plays, who were doing sketches, who were doing improv.
Yeah.
And that's really where improv was the tip of the spear, so to speak. And I am so happy that I started with IFTP and with improv.
Yeah, and that philosophy, I like the way you put it, just growing down. I mean, I think that's such a wonderful approach to life. When was there a point or a moment in your life when you realized or you made that change? That was something that you adopted. You're like, hey, this is what I'm going to do from now on.
I mentioned the Dockers thing. So actually, when I went to college, I grew up in Western Massachusetts, and just a little rural community with some mills and things like that. And everybody in high school knew me as the guy who would always wear fancy Dockers and things like that. And I ended up going to college, and I was there for a month. And then I went back to my hometown, and a friend of mine was performing in a ska band show, actually. And I showed up, and I was wearing jeans. And everybody was like, Yeah, like, are you the same person? What is going on?
Who are
here?
you?
And I just said, this is me now. I like jeans. Jeans are comfortable. I'm going to just wear jeans all the time.
You're wearing them right now.
I'm wearing them right now.
Good for you.
So I feel like that was one of the critical moments. And, I have theories about, I was out of high school and I wanted to really just reinvent myself, just think of things in a different way.
Yeah.
But I think that was one of the earliest cases where I was making that intentional transition.
Yeah.
And I had no idea where it was going to go, but I just loved the adventure.
Yeah. And I think, too, that time period in life, thinking back to that in my life, I think it was a huge time of reinvention because it was like, you're on your own, the independence that you experience, going off to college and those sorts of things. It's really a time to shed all that, and become who you are as an adult. Yeah. I think that's like one small change you made, but that's a fantastic change thing to like step into. Literally step into jeans, right?
Yeah, and I mean, now I just go and I go to the nude beaches and I do all that.
Well, there you go.
Now it's way out there.
Yeah.
No, I wear jeans all the time.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think I've seen you in jeans at least a couple of times. So
yeah.
Yeah,
I have started to fuse in the Dockers sometimes.
Well, you know what?
But I'm just like, I'm a full person.
Yeah, you can have both.
That's right.
Yeah, whatever you want to do. So as part of this philosophy, in a way, so over a long period of time, this led you to kind of getting into the performing arts, it sounds like. And it started up in San Francisco, pre-pandemic. Pandemic hit, obviously. Terrible time for improv. Yes, speaking from experience, Zoom improv. So
I'm not a fan.
No. It's not meant to be. It's not meant to be. But you moved down here. So you were on a sabbatical. That's pretty cool. Is that like a work endorsed sabbatical, or they said it's cool with us? Kind of.
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
So one of the experiences, and I actually had brain surgery when I was in San Francisco. And it was fortunately not like a brain tumor or anything like that. There was a massive blood vessels in my head that were just randomly were there.
It's just one of those things. Yeah.
And I found that out, and the pandemic was still going on.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I found this out while I was working from home.
Yeah.
And so, I went through that whole process, had amazing support from friends and family through that, and was very fortunate that it all worked out great.
Yeah.
And I had a perfect recovery from it. But when I went back to everything that I was doing before that, I just something felt different, and it felt like I needed to not do what I was doing at the time. And so I stayed on for about 6 months, and then I made my intentions clear to everybody. My work at the time was very supportive of it.
That's good.
And they were supportive of me just going on an unpaid sabbatical. And so, officially I was able to still have like health insurance for a period of time. But I went on a sabbatical. I traveled a lot. And that was one of the things that I love world travel. Yeah. So I try to go every year to at least one or two different places.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I try to live like a local as much as possible and just understand and observe people.
Yeah.
I love studying just the human experience and how people live in different places. And so I did that for the first part of the sabbatical. And then I also moved to Los Angeles. And I have family in Los Angeles. So my sister and my brother-in-law and my 2 6-year-old nieces are here. And they are the best improvisers.
That's all the reason
in
to
the
come
world.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I made the move. And once I felt like I did enough travel for a period of time, I just hunkered down in Los Angeles, and I found improv. I found IFTP, and I just hit the foot on the gas pedal and said, "Let's go. Let's do this."
It's an incredible story. I mean, I'm glad to hear you're okay. Glad to hear you're doing well. And just it kind of sounds like almost a huge wake up call, like you said. You were like, I don't want to do this how I've been doing it, and you found that opportunity to say, I'm going to make a pivot here, and then just hit the ground running, right? Full steam ahead.
Yeah, and I would say that if anybody, no matter what you're doing, if you have the ability every so often, maybe it's every 10 years, maybe it's every 7 years, maybe it's every 3 years, who knows?
Yeah.
Whatever you can do, take a break and do a reset from whatever you're doing. And it's something that is very difficult to do. It took me a while to plan for it.
Yeah.
But I knew that I wanted to do it. I knew that I needed to do it. And I just encourage people to try that. Just try something new. And you can do it in small ways, and you can do it in big ways. But life's too short.
Yeah.
Why do we follow the same patterns, just do what we want to do all the same all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some good lessons here, Brian. Brian, Zaik on the mic.
Like on the mic.
Okay. So you moved down to Los Angeles. You got family here. You're in Long Beach. You do a little bit of improv there. But how did you find this place? I was wondering, like, how specifically did you find IFTP? I always wonder.
Yeah, well, so one of the things that I actually have found improv to be so helpful with is to force me to not prepare and plan for things. But in this case, I did a lot of research. So I looked at a whole bunch of different schools in and around Los Angeles. And I knew even from, I think I saw IFTP shows on Eventbrite originally.
Okay, yeah.
And I could tell from looking at IFTP that it was a different kind of community. Yeah. And it was one where if people wanted to go deep into preparing to be a performer, they could do it here. But if they, like me, were interested in just exploring a new part of themselves, pushing themselves in creative directions, and even just being a part of a community, that was the impression that I got, even from the early days. And then when I went to that first show, I loved the vibe. The vibes were totally on point.
Yeah.
And then I was talking with people who were in the show as well as people in the audience, and it was just it felt like I had made it, that I had gone to the right place. And once I started talking more with Matt and with other people from the school, it was all pretty consistent. And for this past year, it has been a real joy to be part of the community.
Yeah. So coming in IFTP, you had taken a couple of improv classes, one in San Francisco, one down in Long Beach. What were your impressions or thoughts or feelings around those first few classes you took here? What teacher did you have,
Yeah, so I actually started with Matt on Saturday mornings. Now, I believe I was supposed to be in the other time slot on Saturdays, just because it's more for people who may not have done improv much at all in the past. And I talked with Matt, and I was like, hey, I'm happy to join the other class if you think that's right. And he's like, just stop by. Like, just come to the first class on Saturday. And I immediately fell in love with the group of people. I mean, and some folks had been in IFTP for over 10 years.
Yeah.
Diana Woody. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I met Diana right at the beginning. And that group has been very consistent, even in the last year. So it's fantastic to see the same group all the time. And I will say, I had plenty of challenges, and I still have challenges.
Yeah, of course.
I still get nervous and anxious about things once in a while. I will say that there have been some times when I have thought, gee, I really didn't do all that well with this class or something like that. But my philosophy is keep beating that drum. And I have seen so many improvements and changes over the course of this year. Is there still room to grow? Absolutely. And I hope there always is.
Yeah.
And there are so many things that I learn even with class this past weekend. Learned a lot from that one class, and it's after a year of doing this. And I think it's just, those results come with time. And for somebody like me who didn't have any of this performing background before, I probably made every mistake in a sense in the book, but really being able to laugh it off and say, it's okay. Nobody's judging you here. And that really helped me power through it. And the support of other people really just tied it in a bow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's, like you said, every week you're learning stuff and you're improving and you're doing worse at some things and then you're doing better. It's the whole thing's such a ride. But I think just being able to have that like self-awareness every week, like, hey, I'm probably going to mess something up today. That's okay, but I'm going to do this a little better too, finding those objectives of things you want to work on. I just love the process of it because, like you said, it's unending, right? You keep going. There's always something new to work on. Every class, you're hit with something you didn't even think about or realize before. What do you think were some of the lessons that were hardest for you to learn early on?
Well, so I would say that the whole concept of active listening, but actually paying attention to every word and not rejecting things, that was a process for me because I was making judgments in my head and I had to actively tell myself, no, don't do that. Just go with the flow, yeah. Right? And it's such a gift when people give you, they might give you a name, they might give you an accent, a relationship, whatever it is. That is the best gift because it helps you be better as an improviser. It takes the edge off it, the pressure, because now you're relying on each other and you're present in the moment. I had done all sorts of meditation and different excursions to try to understand deep listening, etc. But improv is the truest form of that. Yeah. Because that is where it all becomes magic. When you can really be omnipresent in the moment, but then you can go this direction or that direction, and you will go whichever direction your mind jumps to that fits with the environment that you're in.
Yeah, just being able to move wherever you need to move. Yeah, and I think active listening is, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I think I still find myself every day being like, whether in my normal life or when improvising or doing any comedy, it's like you have to remind yourself to do it. I have I have some customer service aspects to my job, not all the time, but it comes up, and I always find that's a really important opportunity where I'm like, okay, this is an active listening moment. Don't anticipate my response. Just let them air it out, whatever their grievance is. And that skill is so valuable. Have you seen or felt any crossover from your work here at Improv into your career at all?
In so many ways. And I've also seen things that I was already doing with work that just seemed like second nature or something that felt natural. Yeah. And I've connected them back to some of the things that really make me better at improv. So, for example, with my job as a product manager, I have to make presentations all the time. And one of the things that I think has been so valuable about improv and has given new meaning to things that I was already struggling to do in work and other aspects of life is to not prepare so much for everything, to trust yourself. Yeah. Because we all have, maybe not 100%, but probably at least like 70%. Unless we're going in completely blind to a situation, which has its own strengths. I mean,
it does.
That can be a little easier too, with the power of the skills that we have with improv. But this idea that you're in the headspace, assuming that you've got 70% of the information, then that is enough. And you can, and I'm not saying don't make anything up, obviously, but with work presentations, a lot of it is the tone, is the way that you connect the dots to people in a presentation that you're giving. And actually, I have in practice seen that even if you look at, let's say, an Apple keynote, when Steve Jobs would give one, and I know Steve Jobs was a lot of things. Yes. I'll say that first. Yes. But with keynotes, he even would say this, he would practice and rehearse and all that, but then he reached a type of galaxy brain perspective where it was not scripted at all. Yeah. And so he would fuse in jokes and he would sound so fluid and natural about that. And in many cases in corporate settings, we don't have that. We just try to make everything seem perfect. And that's not how life is. And it makes it less authentic, because we're trying to paper over all of the little things that we may not fully understand or may not be perfect or something like that. So I was already seeking to do parts of that when I would give presentations or just talk with groups of people. but more of a confidence and assuredness that there will be some things that I may not even know the answer to right away. But what matters more to people is the partnership, the last mile, closing the gaps. And that's something that I think improv has really helped me do in a much more fluid, natural way.
Yeah, and I just talking about the corporate side of presentations, how, like you said, kind of just stiff they can be. Just that adding in that touch of humanity can go such a long way in terms of engagement and just getting buy-in from your audience, whether that's your coworkers or potential client, whatever that looks like. Oh my gosh, like you said, that's kind of that last mile. How you get the home run, right? Oh, I love that. And I think, improv, and it's genuine, it's not fake humanity. It's not fake sincerity that you're adding. It's really, truly genuine and authentic, and that's why people buy it. Same with improv as well. When you're watching a performance and you're seeing the struggle happen right there in front of you, you're rooting for it. You're rooting for those two actors up there, those performers.
Yeah, it makes it so much more exciting to see that joyful struggle. And I know that Matt and plenty of other people talk about this all the time, the joyful struggle. Mm-hmm. The joyful struggle is beauty itself.
Yeah.
And I wish I had known that on day one with improv, because I would have embraced it more readily.
Yeah. Instead of just being like, man, I'm not good at this yet. Why am I not good at this? That kind of that mindset.
Yeah, or just trying to come in with an agenda, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy to fall into that pattern, especially not having any background with this previously, that I'm just like, okay, well, I had this idea going into this game. Oh, yeah, it's going to be great. And then every time I have come in with an agenda, it has fallen flat. And it is good that it falls flat. I'm happy it falls flat. It humanizes me. It makes me feel better. But it also has this group trust that you build together by just throwing out the agendas and just going with it.
Yeah, whatever happens. Did you find it hard to adjust or hard to accept that failure at first? You're like, I'm supposed to fail. That's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I will say that my background, especially if I look back to just being a kid, I had so many perfectionist qualities or desires, right? And it's been a process to break that down. And improv has been a huge tool and help in breaking through that. But yeah, it's really just, I think the preparation is for trying to get to an outcome that you think is the best outcome. But that also easily ignores all of the amazing people who are around you. And I've seen it so many times in business, in life in general, where everyone's viewpoint, and it sounds cliched, but diversity of thought and viewpoints is so critical, and it makes such a better outcome. And it's not something that we can prepare for, because we're not all some hive mind that knows exactly how everybody's going to respond to this or that.
Not at all.
And thank God we're not, because that would be so boring.
Yeah, the unpredictability is entertaining.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think a trend I've noticed in your thinking, I think talking about your international travel experiences, just observing the humanity, the life of a local, thinking about the improv, I think you just have this great ability to appreciate humanity for all its, the differences that we find, the nuances of people in every possible area. And I think you mentioned the value of different voices. And I think in my mind, there are two ways to experience that. Not the only two ways, but arts and culture are huge ways to experience, voices different than oneself, right? Arts gives you exposure. Travel gives you exposure, right? I think of myself, I'd never been out of the country until this past summer. And I had, my wife and I went on this really cool trip. We went to a few different countries, and I was like, my mind was blown. It's still blown.
That's great.
And I was like, I'm so thankful I got to do this, because I've just been in America my whole life, It was really, really fascinating just to get out there. And arts is the same way. I mean, the people I've met through art, performing arts, going to museums, visual arts, just expanding, one's own horizons. Right? That makes me think of your growing down too. Just everything about it. Yeah.
It's all connected. I
It
swear.
is all connected. Brian. It is. Yeah.
But also, I mean, there's elements that I have no. I don't know where they're going to come from, right?
Yeah.
Like every time to your point, you introduce yourself to something new or a new place or a new group of people or new form of art. That is the richness of the human experience more than anything.
Yeah. So put it in writing, folks. Get out your parchment. Get out your chisel. Whatever. Okay. So a little bit of a turn. You mentioned earlier it's your 1 year anniversary. Again, congratulations. I totally remembered. We have reservations at 8.
Oh, that's great. I had no dinner plans. Great.
There you go. You mentioned in this past month, there's been a lot of firsts, right? Your first improv performance, your first sketch performance, your first podcast, and your first year here at IFTP. So thinking about those accomplishments, those milestones, what do you think? Is there anything you're working towards or thinking about in the year ahead? Mm-hmm. Because those are all bold things to go out and do and try. And I think it's amazing. It was such a pleasure to have you as part of the sketch show.
It was so much fun. Yeah, the sketch was amazing.
It's insanity. Yeah.
and so like going into the next, it was a lot. It absolutely was.
Oh
a lot,
yeah, it is.
In a very good way.
Yeah.
And I was so proud of the show at the end of the month when we had 8 sketches and they all came together and it was fantastic. So for the next year, so there's some aspects of improv that I want to focus on for sure. And then there's also expansion. So I still live in Long Beach and I end up driving up and down and all over LA County all the time.
Yep.
So assuming that I perhaps move a bit closer to the center of everything, and Long Beach has plenty of that too.
Yes,
so I might still consider doing it down there.
Yeah.
I would love to explore more acting classes and, build on the things that we covered in sketch.
Yeah.
And I would definitely love to do another sketch show and classes and things like that, because that was the first time that I ever wrote a screenplay too for the sketch.
Yeah,
so now I know all the right tools and not to write too much dialogue and things like that. So I definitely want to expand on that, look into acting. And I think especially, and this relates to improv as well, developing characters and personalities and points of view. So one thing that I have certainly learned with improv over the first year has been when you're in front of people, when you're on stage, you don't have the luxury of time. So unless you're doing a true long form improv, you've got to get that point of view out there and have a strong perspective, a strong POV. And so that's something that I absolutely want to flesh out more with. And it's voice work, it's space work, it's body language, all that. And I've started to develop a cadre of characters that I am bringing in some ways. And there's still plenty of refinement that I want to do on those characters. But I just had a makeup or a drop-in class with Liam in the last month. And we did a lot of character work, and it felt great. And I'm just like, I got to do more of that.
Yeah.
I would say that I would love to be part of more improv shows and things like that. So in the next year, that would be a great goal.
Yeah.
And I know that we've got improv camp coming up soon too.
Yeah, in October.
And I signed up for it because I especially wanted to spend a concentrated amount of time on all of these different aspects of improv. So even doing once or twice a week, you still have time in between those.
Yeah,
that's
large
good.
gaps.
That's good for resetting and relaxing a little bit in between them. But I think having accelerated time through the camp will be fantastic as well. So I'm looking forward to those things in the next
camp year. It's amazing. I mean, it is an improv intensive for a couple days that you're up there. It's you'll see. So
looking forward to it.
I think that's an excellent choice that you've made, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. All right, I got a couple more questions for you, Brian. Then we're gonna do a little bit of improv, a little bit,
Just a little.
yeah. But what would you say, or what would be your hook to get someone? I'm sitting here, I've never done improv before. What would you say to kind of say, hey, maybe you should try this out?
Well, if I know that the person is already into extreme sports, then I have a very specific answer. Because in my mind, when you are about to get up with improv, there's a feeling. I've done skydiving. I don't know if you've done skydiving before.
Haven't.
But when, even with a tandem jump, when you're up in that plane and you go up to, whatever it is, 8,000 feet or so, and they open the door, there's no turning back. And there is this nervousness, but then when you make, in that case, you fall out and away from the plane,
yes.
Right? It's a little extreme, but it's the same thing all the time where you're nervous about something and you've got all these voices in your head about, it's going to be, I'm not going to do well. I'm not going to be funny. I'm not going to this, that. Those voices always come up. And they come up for me plenty. They come up for everybody, right? But being able to actually get to that point, like you just had the door open, you've committed to getting out of that plane. There's only one way out. It's you leave, right? And there's no going down with the plane again to land on the airstrip. When you get to that point, at least for me, and from what I have observed about many other people, you enter a new state of mind where you are there's no turning back and you commit to it. That is the most exhilarating feeling in the world because you've gotten past all of these voices and concerns and things like that, and you just get up and do it. And sure, it might not work out perfectly, and nobody should expect that. But the more times that you do that and you push yourself to do that, the more comfortable you're going to be with that and the more exciting it's going to be. Every single time you do that, you'll get that adrenaline rush. And that's what I say to people. I know plenty of people, friends, family, people who shall remain nameless in my family where they've tried, they dabbled in improv and they're this isn't for me or whatever. But it's all a matter of just pushing yourself like that. And you start to see all the effects of that, not before long. Yeah. And so that's what I say to people. I'm just like, give it a shot. Commit to it for a period of time. And more often than not, and more likely than not, you will find that adrenaline rush, and it will probably keep you going. And you're surrounded by a great group of people who are all on their own journeys. You're all experiencing this connected thing together, right? And I think it's something that everybody should try at least once.
Yeah. Both skydiving and improv.
I agree with that too. I would say the same about skydiving.
I've done the improv. I'll work on the skydiving. I'll see.
All in time.
Yeah, all in time. That one, you know what? I should probably try it. Yeah. All right. My last question for you, Brian, and maybe you've already answered this, but it won't hurt to recap a little bit. But what would you say has been the impact of improv on your life?
I tie it back to that confidence of not having to prepare for as much in life.
Yeah.
There are some things that you should absolutely prepare for. I'm not saying don't prepare.
Yeah.
But with so many aspects of life, we build ourselves into these little boxes. And we always have reasons why we need to prepare, why we need to stress out about things and this and that, right? But improv is an ego destroyer more than anything, right? You've got ideas. Yeah. It's like the Joker in The Dark Knight, right? Yeah. Like you had plans, but improv forces you to throw all those plans out the window. And that is the most liberating thing in the world, especially if you embrace it. And I think that it transcends so many aspects of life.
Yeah.
It's therapeutic, but it also gives you more comfort and enjoyment of life beyond improv, in my opinion. Yeah. And it goes to so many aspects of life.
Well said, Brian. Well said, Brian Zaik with the mic. All right. So we've been talking about improv. Are you ready to do some improv, Brian?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do some improv. Grab your Scotch bonnet. Grab your Cascanellas.
Oh, I thought you got some scotch. I was like, that's another of my passions.
You know, we haven't tried that here on the podcast. I don't know that we will. We haven't factored in alcohol because it's a school night.
Summer series.
Oh, summer
Next
series.
summer,
You're right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. We have until the 21st, right? That's when summer ends.
Yeah,
and it switches to fall.
So
we've got until we've got a week or so. Anyway, with that said, tonight the improv game we're going to be playing. I think this will work. So the game that we're going to play is called Missed It by That Much. And how this game is going to work is that, Brian, you filled out a little form for me before you came in here today. You told me about some of your favorite movies, television shows, books, even. And what we're going to do tonight is that I've chosen one of those favorites that you listed. And we're going to do our best to reenact a scene, a part of it. The problem is, I missed it. I haven't seen it, or read it, or watched it. But we're going to work on this together. So the selection I made from your list, I believe it's a book, The Little Prince. I think it's a book.
It is a book, yeah.
It is a book. I'm not familiar with this this piece of literature. But Brian and I tonight, we're going to perform a scene from The Little Prince to the best of our ability. And you know what? We're just going to do it, and I'll black us out when we're done. And Brian, I'm going to give you a tough challenge. Because you're very familiar with the source material, right? I see the confidence in your eyes.
Yeah, I haven't read it in years. This will be a lot of fun.
Oh, even better. You're going to give us the first line. So anything else you need? You feel good with that?
All right. Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
So this is a retelling, a recreation of the beloved classic novella, short story, The Little Prince. Lights up.
Oi, what you got there, Sonny?
Oi, I've got something here in my hand. I better show it to ya.
Oh, what you got? Oh.
Look, it's a little Prince Harry.
A little prince. Oh, let
Hold him. Gentle, gentle, gentle.
Oh, wow, isn't she cute as a bonnet?
Oh, cute as a button.
Cute as a button.
Little Prince Harry.
Okay, well, got a little bit of, got a little feather here.
Oh,
Little feather.
no. Don't do that. Don't.
It fits right in my bonnet.
Oh, it's a lovely feather.
What a lovely, lovely day this is. Well, my dear boy.
Yes, Cornelius.
Sassafras. My dear Sassafras.
Yes.
I must ask you, what have you had for dinner tonight?
Well, yes, you see, I finished making my model of the Little Prince. As you know, I make models of all the townsfolk, little tiny figurines. So after I finished my Little Prince, I just had some old bread from the bakery down the street. I wasn't feeling too hungry after finishing my models. My figurines.
Just a little piece of bread.
Just a little bread. I had to share with the figurines, of course, the little townsfolk.
Yes. Oh, look at you. You have a diorama of the townsfolk.
Yes, Cornelius, I do. I've got to tell you something.
Yeah.
It's not quite ready yet, but I've been working on your house.
My house?
Yes, your house, Cornelius. All right, I'll show you. It's not finished, but... Well...
You've recreated the breakfast nook.
Yes, the nook. I love the nook. The times you've invited me to dine. I thought, this whole diorama is a passion project. And so I quite love to create the town, and, I love living here. But your house, most of all, is my favorite place. And that breakfast nook, some of my most fondest memories.
Oh, I just remember the smell of fresh strawberries. Oh, and the sunlight streaming through the window.
Through the bay window.
Ah, yes.
Oh, yes, Cornelius.
Just smell the summer breeze.
Yes. Yes, strawberries on the wind and a nice cup of tea.
Ah, yes, just a spot of tea. A spot of tea. Oh, Cornelius and Sassafras.
Ha! Those two friends could not be stopped.
The rapscallion.
Rip-rap.
Sassafras, I must tell you. Oh, you have made me feel like I am but a wee lass like you. A wee lass.
Yes.
Oh, you remind me of my younger days.
I am glad you can live your youth through my escapades.
Oh, yes. Well, we'll just have to go on a new escapade. We'll have to invent our own escapades, our fantasies.
Yes, of course. I'll tell you something.
Yes, do tell.
I've got a dark secret.
A dark secret?
Yes.
Sassafras with a dark secret.
Yes, Cornelius. I did not make this table just for my amusement. There is a power here, you see. And he, or she, whomever controls this table, can control the ongoing goings of the town.
I think we can control the future of the village.
Yes, Cornelius. Are you willing to secretly rule this town of Brookfordshire with me?
We will rule behind the curtains, and we will,
Yes.
we will manipulate their lives, but in a good way.
Yes, of course, in a good way. Nothing but the best. For, see this little prince figurine here? He who rules the town, right? Yes, we have your house here. We have the town square.
The town square. And they will never know the deception under the surface of the village.
Yes, Cornelius. You're beginning to see. You're beginning to see what could be possible. A whole town under our thumbs.
It makes me hot just thinking about it.
Yes. Yes, Cornelius, I am also bothered.
Bothered by the premise of the future.
Yes,
That is the way.
Blackout!
I'm going to apologize to everybody who has ever read the
What do you mean? That was That was like a Netflix adaptation. It was perfect.
Yeah, we'll come up with something else called.
Did we get one detail right?
Oh, it's been so long since I read that.
Any Cornelius and or Sassafras in the original text in the toe?
I'll let you know next week.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I need you to go home and do some review.
Yeah.
All right, Brian. Well, thank you so much for playing. Before we conclude our episode this evening, any final words you want to leave us with?
Just say, life is too short. If you're worried about something, if you've gone to improv class once or thought about it or something like that, or any type of performing arts, take it from me. I never did any of this stuff before this. It is a hell of an adventure. You will meet some of the coolest people on earth, and you will not have to take yourself seriously. Life's too short. Why worry about things? Just leave it at that. Give it a shot.
Give it a shot.
Yeah.
Give it a shot. The words of Brian Zaik on the mic. Well, Thank you so much for Brian for joining us this evening on Improv for the Podcast. As always, you can listen to us anywhere that podcasts can be found, whether that's Amazon, an RSS feed, or any other service in between. As always, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Improv for the Podcast was created by Matt Moore and Michael Lee Evans, edited and produced by Michael Lee Evans, and finally presented by Improv for the People. Interested in more IFTP? You can visit us at improvforthepeople.com or on our socials, such as Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Remember, new episodes are released weekly. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.